Jesus more.
My dear friends, in our Christian experience, one of the phrases we often hear is, we want to depend on God. Please, you have to depend on God. We have to surrender to God. We hear that very often. And at times, because we hear it very often, we already think that, or we even feel that we have already surrendered our lives to God and that we depend on God. But independency creeps in at times without us even noticing. At times we depend on ourselves, but we don't really notice that really we have dependence on ourselves. And I think this is very important text that every Christian should read over and over again, like I would say to many other texts from the scriptures. But this one is very particular, especially knowing that we go through difficulties in life that we cannot manage. And why I say that most of the time, the fact that we don't depend on God creeps in without us noticing because we worry. Because we worry. If we really truly depend on God, then we won't worry. And this is one thing that cuts across everybody. There's nobody that is exempted from this. We somehow, at some point, always express that independency on God, that we do not really depend on Him because we worry about every single thing. We do not have peace of mind. We suffer from anxiety. We suffer from depression. Why? Because we do not truly depend on Him. And what the consequence of that is that we do not really trust Him. When we worry, what happens is that we just believe that maybe God would not be faithful. Therefore, I have to do something that is going to manage the situation when God fails. That is what worrying is about. That I am not really sure that God is going to do it for me. I am not really sure that God is going to give me that thing that I'm asking for. I'm not sure that God is going to be there. Therefore, I have to look for something that I would do or some kind of coping mechanism in case God fails. That is why we worry. I worry about tomorrow. I worry about if I'm going to eat food or not because I'm not really sure if God is going to provide for me. Right? I worry about what is going to happen in my life in the future. Therefore, I'm trying to do everything to cope with reality now, to do something and to invest so that once the future comes and God fails, then I am going to step in. So this is the consequence of the fact that we do not truly and totally depend on God. It's true we depend on God, but to some extent. I myself, you, everybody is really a victim of this. That sometimes, because of the way reality presents itself, and because we have chosen other things, therefore at times we feel we have to use those blessings and the things that we have received to cope. So those things begin to replace God. You know, when God created human beings, He gave them authority over all things. He gave them authorities over the plants of the earth, over the animals, and all the other things. And this is a blessing. But then, this blessing somehow made us to begin to depend on the things that God Himself has given us. And we begin to depend on them to the exclusion of God. So God has given us authority to be able to look after everything. He has given us power, He has given us authority. But then we use that authority as if God does not really exist. I need to use this power that God has given me to build up my life, to depend on myself, to be self-contained, such to the extent that, I do not even need God. I do not really need to depend on Him. At times, and this is the problem, and this is the danger as well, that we depend on ourselves more than God. The consequence of this, of the fact that we depend on other things, is that we find more security in the things around us more than God. So I don't believe God can really protect me. I don't believe that God can really look after me. But I believe my money is going to look after me. Okay? I believe my money is going to do that which God cannot do. And that is why he says at the beginning of the text today, Jesus, in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 6, verse 24, we cannot serve two masters. We cannot depend on the things around us, and yet we feel that we depend on God. It's true. It's not a bad thing that we invest in the life to come. In fact, it's God that gives us the knowledge to be able to do that. He gives us the wisdom to be able to do that. But then we cannot deify, we cannot make those things to become God, that we depend on them, we trust in them to the exclusion of God. That is the only danger. That is the danger that we face. And that is why it's so important to continue to put God as the center. That's why he gives this example and he says, when we worry, we only make it double, because there are things that we can't control, and we worry about them. I worry about them myself. Last week I measured my blood pressure, it was high. Why is that? Why is it high? Because I worry. I worry about different things and my blood pressure goes high. Why? Yeah, because I feel I have to control. We take that control from God and we place it on ourselves. We want to control everything. And that is the danger. That is the danger, my dear friends, that we feel that we are the center, but yet God is still the center of everything. There's a friend of mine, Father John Akain, a very good friend of mine. He's a doctor and he teaches in one of our seminaries in Africa. He went home and then one of his friends told him, you know, Father, I'm suffering from depression. And he said to him, what is depression in your local language? What is the word for depression in Iligainon? Okay, like something like that. What is the word of depression in your local language? And then the man said he doesn't know. He said, then you are not suffering from that. You cannot suffer from what you do not know. You just hear about this thing and you just feel you have it. It's because in these days and this time and age, we worry a lot. We worry a lot. We have the gadgets, we have everything. You know, the world tries to give us everything that we begin to feel that we do not need God, we do not need to depend on Him. If we have the money, we have bodyguards, we have a good house, we have a good car, why do we have to go to church? That is what people think about. I have everything around me. Why do I have to go to church? Why do I need God? Why do I need this and that? And that is why I was surprised, especially when I went to Ireland, a lot of people suffering from depression. And then I went back at home to Nigeria, where people have nothing. People are going through a lot of stress, no jobs, no food even. People are suffering their home, a lot of homelessness. People are really going through a lot of stress. Recently, 40 kids were adopted, no? And even till now, nobody knows where they are. But there are videos of what is happening, the tortures that they are going through. And yet, people still survive through that. And I have never heard about anything. Maybe people suffer from it, but I never saw anybody suffering from depression. At home, I say, you know, there is depression. Somebody suffering from depression. They say, what are you talking about? They have no idea what it is. And you know, part of that is because they have nothing. They have to depend on God. If you have nothing, then you have to depend on He who has everything. And that is a call for us today. We might feel we have all these things around us. We have the security and everything. But we can only have true security in God. It is only God who provides for us. It is only God who can lead us and guide us. Everything about our lives is in God's hands. I say it very easily. I'm not saying that I'm living it. Okay? It's very difficult for all of us, but we must try. Jesus says, look at the lilies, the flowers. They don't have to think about how to dress up. Look at the birds in the air. They don't have to store food, but you see them singing and they are joyful and happy. Do you think God thinks about those birds and those lilies more than He thinks about you? God loves us so much that He cannot allow us to go through what He has not allowed us to go through. And that is why we must learn to depend on Him, to trust in Him, to hold on to Him, even when we do not understand. Even when we have everything that seems to be good and happy, we must at all times learn to depend on Him. And let us ask God, therefore, during this Eucharistic celebration, to ask for that particular prayer, that we may always depend on God at all times.
Kiss us, mother, kiss your children. Bring God's blessings from above. With your mantle blue enfold us in your gentle holy love. See the darkness dissipating, hear the trumpet echoing, Satan's rage